Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the famous Quill Connect, actually.
This is about planning for your own life.
We are glad that you have joined us today with this session. In the interest of time, Miss Beth will introduce herself.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody in person and on Zoom. My name is Beth Kessler and I'm working with the ARC of Virginia, but I also work with another organization that created what we call the Charting the LifeCourse framework, which is, it's a bunch of kind of key ideas that we care about so much that they impact how we make decisions, how we plan, how we communicate, and the actions we take. So I'm going to talk about that today. And this is really just supposed to be funny. So we are not here to do math. We're here to talk about how we can approach planning and problem solving in our own lives differently than sometimes we're pushed to. So how many of you have ever taken some kind of assessment? So the way assessments generally work is they ask you about things you can't do. So here's an assessment. How many of us can do math that looks like that in our heads?
No.
Oh, one person. Okay, amazing. Everybody else, according to our assessment, you need one of these in the middle.
Yes, of course.
But I'm not going to just give you a calculator. I'm going to give you a big, heavy, like statistics calculator that does all kinds of stuff you'll never need. And you'll have to carry it around with you. It'll be too heavy and big to fit in your pocket. Okay, but I've solved your problem. And I've determined your problem based on my assessment. Now, how many of you have seen something like that? All the time.
Cell phone.
Happens to have a calculator on it. Right? Okay. So here's the difference. How many of you have to do math that looks like this on a daily basis?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
But how many of you sometimes need to like go out to dinner and split a check, figure out a tip, pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes we have to do math. It is a part of our lives, but there are tools that exist that can help us do what we need to do, right?
Yeah.
But that's not typically how service systems are set up. And it's not typically how planning processes work. So formal planning, systems like service systems, like disability services, they have annual planning processes, right? How many of you plan for your lives one time a year? How many of you need a plan more than once a year? How many of you make plans about dinner? How many of you make plans about travel? How many of you sometimes have a problem with something and you need to figure out what to do about it? Right?
Yeah.
Planning is a part of our lives. We can't get away from it,
No.
but we can do it differently.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just assessments that tell us what our problems are and then tell us what the right solution is for us. But that's also kind of human nature. even when we're not working with a service system. How many of you have ever talked to somebody about something that's important to you, and what they say to you is, you know, what you need to do is,
Yes.
are they always right?
No.
Okay. So that's where this comes in. If I can progress my slides, that's where this comes in. So this is a picture of charting the life course. Charting the life course is a bunch of ideas that help us organize information differently, share information differently, plan differently, problem solve differently. Okay, we're going to look at 2 tools today. Charting the life course has tons of tools. They have a whole website full of tools. We're going to use 2 today that I think are really good planning tools. Okay, so I said you can do lots of stuff with charting the life course. You can organize information, share information, problem solve, plan, and I'm sure more. Today we're talking about planning.
And we do have one in the chat box.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome back.
I appreciate the help.
Anytime.
I don't know how to access the chat box while I'm in this mode. So hang on one second.
Okay, so what you're gonna do is just click right there.
Thank you. Okay, I will fix that. Thank you so much, folks on Zoom, for letting me know you couldn't see it. Thank you for your help. Okay,
You may need to click, try to click the share, and also what you can do is play from current slide and make it all,
Yeah.
like, make it.
Thank
like,
you.
Yes, she did, right?
Okay. So I want to walk us through this picture just a little bit. Now, along the bottom of the picture, you see these icons that look like people. Charting the Life course calls those life stages. It's not about age. It doesn't matter what age you are. Our lives are about context. And what I mean by that is who I am and how I show up in the world is always impacted by who is around me and what's happening with them. I am not me without my daughter. I am not me without my family. I am not me without talking about Virginia. I am not me without talking about the Ark, right?
Right.
I exist within the context of all those other things. What's happening with all those other things impacts my life. So if I'm making a plan for my life, I can't only think about me. I have to think about me within the context of all those other people and things. So that's one thing Charting the Life course tells us. Life stages are about what's happening to us and what's happening to the people closest to us. I'm an adult. I'm in my adult life stage. It's shown here in brown. However, I have a 6-year-old. Most of my life, most of the decisions I make, and most of the planning I do is about early childhood. That's the life stage I am most focused on right now. So one part of Charting the Life course is life stage. One part of Charting the Life course is this bunch of circles you see over on the end. All those circles really just say our lives are made up of different pieces. We have the communities where we live. We have our daily life, our employment. We have our advocacy, how we contribute to the world. We have our health. We have safety, right? We have all these different aspects of our lives. Those are represented in colors in the innermost circle. This is every person exists within the context of other people. This framework says they exist within the context of family, but family is defined by you and only you. Family might be friends, family might be neighbors, family might be support staff, family might be the family you were born into or the family you built. You define for yourself who the people are closest around you. And all of our lives have lots of different pieces.
Can I make an example?
Sure.
Like how Janelle was, guys, did you guys listen to how Janelle, who is right here in the front, spoke earlier about what she would like to see in the future? How many people actually listened, and how many you guys think that would work all for you guys? The transportation needs, work, and living on your own. How many think you guys think that will be like that in the future?
So we think of those in Chart and Life Course, we call those life domains. They're parts of our lives. Each one we can plan around, but they each impact the other. Here's an example. I moved from Oregon to Virginia. So I moved from the west coast of our country to where we are now. Because I moved, my community changed. But because I moved, my job changed, my relationships changed, right? My house changed, my child's life changed. Lots of other aspects of my life were impacted by one change I made in one part of my life. Hang on one second and I'll take questions. So all those aspects of life surround the person. Oh, did you have an example for us instead?
No, I just have a question.
Okay.
They have a park in Oregon.
They do have an arc in Oregon. Yep. So
Paul's pal, Charles May, moved from Virginia to Pennsylvania.
Yes,
another big move.
he is
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another planning is just to make a copy of it.
Absolutely. That's a
Good
great
job.
example of a
Good
plan.
job.
Things we do all the time. So the next part of this framework is the next circle out. And there's three colors. There's blue, green, and orange. And what that says is every person throughout our whole lives, we only ever need three kinds of things. Sometimes what we need is information. We need to learn something. We need to build some skills. We need to understand. That's blue. Sometimes what we need is relationships, other people, connection, networks. That's orange. And sometimes what we need is a thing we can hold or touch or describe. It's a service or a good, right? It's a thing you can be eligible for or purchase or have. Okay, that's green. And then the outside of the circle, there are 5 colors. You also see those 5 colors represented here in a star. That's how am I going to meet my needs? Nobody else gets to tell me how. There are 5 kinds of support that exist in the world. Only I get to decide what the right support is for me. And I can use any one kind of support to build 4 more. So those 5 supports, we call them integrated support star. Sometimes the support I'm going to access is within me. It's my personal strengths, things I have. Sometimes the support I'm going to access is relationships in my life, whether those are paid or unpaid, people I know well, or people I've only met once. Sometimes the support I need is other people. Sometimes the support I need is technology. We've talked about that a lot today, right? Sometimes the support I need is something that exists in the community where I live. Now, not everything in our communities is accessible to everybody who should be able to access it. Personal strengths and assets. And I'm going to give you a worksheet. I'm going to hand one out that has all this stuff on there. So sometimes what we need is a community resource. And sometimes the support that's right for us is something we're eligible for, right? It's a service. Now, eligibility can mean lots of things. But community resources is I should be able to access this to help me because of where I live. Eligibility support is I should be able to access this because of some characteristic of me, my age, my diagnosis, how much money I have, right? Something about me. And then this arrow you see, we call it trajectory, which really just means we all end up somewhere in our lives. The experiences we have throughout our lives from the time we're born, they accumulate, they compound, they build on each other, and they lead us somewhere. So how do we start planning and problem solving in a way that helps those experiences in our lives lead us to where we want to be and away from where we don't want to be? Sometimes we can picture where we want to be. Sometimes it's really hard to picture where we want to be. We can almost always share where we don't want to be, what we do not want to experience, what we do not want our lives to look like. So that's trajectory. So I have a handout. That would be great. Thank you so much. I'll give you half and I'll hand out half. How's that?
I think we had one, I don't know if that's the same comment on the first one.
Okay.
but,
I would be happy to share the slides, Charlotte. So we can just put a stack of these, maybe call on each
Okay.
of the tables and people can hand them out.
Okay.
I'll start with that.
Mr. Murray.
That would help.
It's Mr. Reed.
Yeah, we missed the guy.
You can write or draw on a piece of paper, or you can just make yourself some notes while this is coming around.
Don't call me Miss.
What I want you to do, I want you to write down two things. You can write words, you can draw pictures, you can work with a person next to you or behind you to help you write things down. But I'm going to give everybody 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. And what I want you to do, first listen to the instructions and then we'll get 10 minutes. So first thing I want you to do is write down or draw, what is it that you want in your life? And I want you to write down or draw, what is it you don't want in your life? What do you want to avoid? But here's the rule. Everything is possible. You do not have to have the answers about how to make these things happen. For this exercise, everything is possible. What is it you want for your life? And absolutely. And what is it you don't want for your life? What do you want to avoid? Start with whichever one you want, but I want you to think about both. What do you want for your life? And what do you want to avoid? You don't have to have the answers about how to make these things happen. Everything is possible when you're doing trajectory. I'm going to give you 10 minutes.
Okay, they're gone.
So the arrow is just a visual that says you are where the arrow starts, wherever that is. You're at the bottom of the arrow. And the arrow is like a path that we're gonna figure out, but we don't have to know the path yet.
I don't know. No, you don't, compared to 90. Yeah. I don't, trying to get, trying to get.
What do you want?
Yes. Great. You can write as much as you want to on your paper.
What do we do on the data?
So the lines represent how are we going to get there? How are we going to get what we want and avoid what we don't want? And we don't know the answer to that yet.
Does this side,
Yeah. Well, this is a little different because charting the life course says you don't have to have the answers right away. You don't have to know what to do right away. What we tend to do as people is we tend to identify a problem or something we want, and then we tend to identify what will it take to achieve it, or we tend to identify here's the solution to my problem. But the problem with that, what doesn't work about that, is we don't always know the answers. So what we end up doing is we shrink our list of what we want because we're only willing to say we want things we know how to achieve. And we only come up with solutions that we already understand and we already know exist. So this is about planning differently. It's about slowing down that process. We're not going to jump from what do we want to how do we achieve it. We're going to spend some time in between figuring it out, exploring it, reflecting on it. It's going to be a little bit different of a process. So right now, I just want you to dream the dream part. Anything is possible. We don't have to know how to get there yet. Awesome.
Guys, look at this, for instance, look at this conference. All of us dreamed about being back here in Virginia Beach or wherever, you know, with COVID still going on, we dreamed about all reconnecting. Then we put the bad stuff in the past, we go on to the future, right, you know?
Nicely said.
Yeah.
Yes. Life is a journey, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been doing like virtual fitness games and like for good, and like now we're doing our regular games too, and Bobby.
George, but they're still gonna do virtual, because people are still afraid of COVID.
Oh, Oh.
Work for a Pokemon by making Pokemon. We're gonna be.
Awesome,
Something.
awesome. It's true. Okay. So I'm going to give you just one more minute to jot down any other ideas. You don't have to be finished with this. It was just said beautifully, life is a journey, right? So we're never done figuring out what we want and what we want to avoid. We just want to get started. Okay.
Yes. And I think Will would be good for anybody that doesn't know about, talk about
Absolutely.
developing their vision.
Okay. So the first step of this kind of planning, right, is one, you get to do it anytime you want.
Yes.
Two, when you are talking about what you want and what you don't want, anything is possible. You don't have to know how to make that happen. So what do we do next?
We dream, believe, and achieve.
Sometimes we need to zoom in a little bit, right? How many of you on a touch screen, you zoom in to look at something more closely, or you zoom out to see the big picture? So I mentioned one of the parts of charting the life course is what we call life domains. And really it just means all the different parts of our life. So this is another tool, and I'll give you the website where all this stuff can be downloaded. This is a tool that shows you each of the parts of life. The one on top says daily life and employment. Then it says community living, social and spirituality, healthy living, safety and security, citizenship and advocacy, supports for my family, however I define family, and supports and services. For each one of these, you can describe what is it you want that part of your life to look like. We're not going to take the time to do that right now because I really want to get to the next step with you all, and we only had 1 hour for the session.
Yes.
But if you want to get a little more specific with your trajectory, if you want to think about some of the details of what you want your life to look like, or some of the details of the things you want to avoid, this is a great way to do it. For each one of these, for my daily life or for my employment, what do I really want that to look like? What do I really want to avoid, right? For, yeah, for community living, for where I live and the community I live in. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that is good, actually.
So this is a way to zoom in and get a little more detail. Now, I said we're going to slow down. Our next job is not to figure out, so now what do we do to achieve this life we want and avoid what we want to avoid? Our next job is to slow down our thinking and start to reflect and brainstorm. So the first thing I want you to reflect on and think about is, what might you need in order to achieve this vision that you just made some notes on, what you really want and what you really want to avoid? I want you to think about all 3 kinds of need. We don't generally do that. In planning, we almost always jump to green. What are the things I need to make this happen? The tools, the services. There are 3 kinds of need. Are there things we have questions about? Do we need more information? Do we want to build some more skills, right? The blue, information, learning, skill building. What questions do I have? Orange, what connections might I need? There's a great way to think about connections. It's an acronym that a colleague of mine uses is ice. I is connection with people who might have good information for me. C is other connections, people who are connected to other people.
Yes.
And E, people who have experience with what it is I'm interested in. There are lots of kinds
So that's love.
of relationships and connections we might need. So we're thinking about what information or learning might we need? What questions do we have? We're thinking about connections. Who might we need to connect with to achieve what we want to achieve and avoid what we want to avoid? And green, what kinds of stuff might we need? Tools, services, things, technology, right? And this is just a brainstorm. You can spend 2 minutes doing it. You can spend 2 days doing it. You can talk to lots of people about it. Everybody has a different perspective, right? You don't have to do this by yourself.
No.
The point is, before you jump to problem solving, before you make your plan and figure out how you're going to achieve your goal, you pause, you reflect, and you think about all 3 kinds of need. Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, that is a great attitude. That is a great attitude he has.
The acronym is ICE. So I is people who have information for you. C is people who are connected to other people. And E is people who have experience with what you're interested in.
Yeah.
So that would be your next brainstorm. And then this is where we're going to spend more time. This is what we call the integrated support star. So if we've taken some time to think about what is it I think I might need to achieve what I want and avoid what I don't want. You don't have to know how to access what you need. You're just thinking about what might it be.
Yeah.
The star helps us think about where am I going to find it? Whatever it is I need, where am I going to find it? So this star, we talked about 5 kinds of support. You can have a star in front of you. It can be colorful and beautiful. You can look at 5 fingers on your hand. You can make a list with 5 categories. Whatever works for you. But there are 5 ways you might access what you need. Blue, what do you have within you? What are you good at? What assets do you have? What are your strengths? What are your skills? Relationships is purple. Who do you have in your life? Pink, technology. Dark purple or blue, community support. What resources exist where you live? And green, what might you be eligible for? Now, again, I'm going to compare. This is human planning, right? We plan for dinner, we plan for grocery shopping, we plan for vacations, we plan for our lives. We plan because we want something to be different, or we want something carefully to stay the same.
Yeah.
We don't plan one time a year. But service systems, right, ask us to plan one time a year, and they're all going to look at the green. That planning meeting is going to look at the green. But in your life, how do you achieve what you want and avoid what you don't? You want a colorful life. You want a colorful safety net of support in your life. If every support in your life is green and something about you changes that takes away your eligibility, or something about the services change, or the budget changes, or the law change, right? You are vulnerable. You might experience a crisis in your life because everything in your life, your whole safety net is green. Now, if everything in your life is based on technology and we lose power, this has happened, right?
Yeah.
You might experience a crisis in your life because your whole safety net is one color. If instead we can build a safety net of support in our lives that is all 5 colors, and something changes about one of them, you have 4 more colors to lean on. A colorful safety net of support lets us be brave, and it lets us pursue what we want and avoid what we don't want. Now, the cool thing about integrated supports, that's what this is called, is you can use any color to grow the other 4. So let's say technology. How do you want to use technology in your life to stay connected with relationships? How do you want to use technology to build new relationships? How do you want to use technology to learn about what you might be eligible for? How do you want to use technology to access your community? How many of us during COVID started using technology to get groceries? Right? We figured out how to access community resources, grocery stores, using technology. Absolutely, right? How many of us go to planning meetings, right? The green point of the star, something we're eligible for. And we say, okay, services, how can you help me build the other 4 colors in my life? That might be a dynamic planning meeting conversation. How can we use green to grow the other 4 colors in my life so I have a colorful safety net of support? So how do we use this in planning?
Yeah, actually, I would change the top one, actually.
Okay.
And the reason is because with me, with my situation, like how you were just saying, you know, the 3, 1, 2, 3 is
Uh-huh.
for me, but with the personal strength, I would change it to instead of access, change it to weaknesses.
Okay.
And the reason is because with me, I can see straight, but I can't see perfect vision.
I can see good, I don't have laser eyes.
So
And then add strength, weaknesses, and assets.
Yes.
Because yes, have your personal strength, but what are your personal resources, and what are your assets that then help you?
absolutely. Now, I will say one thing we do not put in a star. We do not put the things that are hard for us. There are plenty of times in planning that we have to talk about what's hard that we need a plan to address. This is about strength-based planning and problem solving. Yes. So we always frame things in our star as things we want and things we have, things we can do, right? This is about identifying. So we're going to get into planning for a second. This is about starting to organize information. So the first thing I want you to do, I didn't hand this out soon enough, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hand out a bunch of stars, but you don't have to wait for the worksheet. You don't have to use the beautiful colored example. You can draw a star, you can make a list with 5 categories. You can draw a hand. You can do it however you want. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Like the purple? Okay, so what I want you to do, Give you 50 miles, right? You want some back. Each point of the star is divided in half. 1 half of the star is you start with, what do you already have in your life? So you're going to think about all 5 categories. I'm going to go back here so you can see them. You're going to think about all 5 categories and you're going to start to make notes or draw pictures or work with the person next to you. What do you have in your life right now? What are your strengths, your skills, your assets? And you're going to write them down. Who is in your life? What are your relationships?
What if people move somewhere else or leave your life?
If they're still a person who you have a relationship with, they go on the star. They don't have to live near you. That's up to you. If you don't think they're in your life anymore, don't list them on the paper. So, who is in your life? How are you currently using technology? Great. How are you currently using technology in your life? What community resources are you using? Do you have a local coffee shop you love? I do. Do you like your library? Do you like a restaurant, a grocery store, a bar? Do you like a yoga studio or a gym? Anywhere, a gaming store, right? What community resources in your community are a part of your life? And then last, what services are you currently eligible for that you're accessing? What are the green supports in your life? So all you're doing, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. All you're doing is making some notes for yourself. You don't have to get through all of them. You're just starting to think about it. What exists in your life now in these 5 categories? You can always update your star, always. I will give you the website where you can download as many as you want. Yes. Either way is fine. Uh-huh. Awesome. Absolutely. Yep. There's no wrong way to fill this out. So community-based, so here's a question. Where in your community do you like to go? You can list places you like to go because those places are probably places you feel comfortable, which probably means those are places you feel are supportive to you. Yes. So, yeah, we're gonna do future next. If it runs over and you need the space, that's totally okay.
Good.
I've worked with.
Okay, I'm just gonna give you one more minute to jot down a few ideas. It's totally okay if you're not done. It's totally okay if you haven't gotten to all 5 categories yet.
All the stores that can use.
Yeah. I don't see most of it.
I want to give a sign that, but yeah, people charging over
Okay, so now we're starting to get into the brainstorming planning part. So what we've done first is we figured out what is it we want, what is it we don't want, and the rule is anything's possible. Now we've started to reflect a little bit on what do things look like right now? What might I need to achieve this? And what supports currently exist in my life? And I've thought about all 5 kinds of support. Now, this one's hard to do by yourself. So it's probably going to be hard to do in here. It's better to do it with other people who know you. It's great to do it when you're service planning. You want to look at the other half of each color. What additional support might help you in all 5 categories? I've thought about what currently exists in my life. Now I'm going to start thinking about what else could I access in my life? What other resources exist in my community that I'm not currently using? What other kinds of technology are there that I could be using? What skills or assets or strengths do I want to build? What other relationships do I want in my life? What other kinds of support might I be eligible for? So this is the, I don't have it right now. I'm not even really sure how to get it, but it exists. So what could it be that I use in my life? And I want to think about all 5 categories. What other skills or strengths do I want to build? What other relationships do I want in my life? What else might I be eligible for? What other resources exist where I live? And what other kinds of technology might I be able to use? And you just start making notes. So I'm going to give you a few more minutes to just think about what other things might you want in your life in these 5 categories that you don't already have. Yes. Yep.
Well, some things I'm unknown about for years, but I've been wanting to do like children's math and
Okay. That absolutely goes on the list. Give it some.
No, hopefully we know that.
And have it back now. Goes on the list.
Yeah, that's mine. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know much right even.
No. Yeah.
That's a great one. You don't like, you know, we should do it with other people who have other. Other people from other. Other people from other.
I have no idea.
I'm not gonna roll it.
All right.
I don't know. We hope to get some active user,
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you just one more minute to jot down a few more ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now you've taken the time
Like,
to think about what you want and what you want to avoid. And you've done that believing anything is possible. You started to think about what might you need to get there, and you thought about all three kinds of need: information or learning, connection or relationships, goods and services. Then you've started to think about, what support do I already have in my life? All 5 categories. What additional support could I have in my life that could help me? Now the trick is, who are you going to talk to about it? None of us exist in isolation. All of our lives exist in the context of other people and the communities where we live. So who else can you talk to? Who is in your life who needs to know this information? Who is in your life who can help you figure out what support to use in order to build the rest? So raise your hand and give me some ideas. Back here?
Yeah.
Absolutely, staff. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Your parents or family? Yes.
Like you said, for us when they show more like my mother's actually legal guardian.
Absolutely. Guardian.
Or if I have relatives on uncles that are already whatever she says, her parents like, or you have relatives like network, extended family.
Absolutely. Yes, over here.
Oh, job coach.
Job coaches.
I went to choice group out.
Yes.
Teacher.
Teachers. Yeah.
Your local CSB or your peer mentor, which will be actually through Hartford, Virginia, which.
Absolutely.
You know, your peer mentor, right? Yeah, she was.
Yes. Your bosses, the people you work with. Yes.
Yeah.
Your mom. Absolutely. In the back. Say that again. Your church. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Potential employers. Yes. Co-workers, your friends, your neighbors. Yes.
Yeah. Case management and also friends that work or phone or used to work at the place that's your dream job.
Absolutely.
Friends like that.
Absolutely. So hang on one second. I know we could keep going. I love all these ideas. You've all just identified ICE. People who have information, people who have connections, and people who have experience, right? All of those people are great to share this information and to help you figure out how do you use the support you have to build support in the other colors. Yes.
So you have to find.
Yep. The star.
You have to start. Everything's going good. We didn't get, say, a job, or we get what we want.
Yep.
Say one of those is taken out
Yep.
for whatever we, no eligible.
Yep.
And we get access. Say eligible.
Right.
What? We do next.
So life changes. Always. Life changes. What we did today is what I'd say you do next. If something changes, you go back to what is it you want and what is it you want to avoid, right? You think about that first. What support exists in your life and what additional support could exist in your life? Then you have the framework to share that information with the people in your life and figure out with them, how do you use the support you have to build the additional support you want? Things will always change. Once you put it down on paper, it's easier to share it and have the conversation, but it doesn't mean that piece of paper is always going to be right. Sometimes something changes and what you want changes, or you have a new life experience and you say, you know what, I thought I wanted that. It turns out I didn't like it.
You have an aha.
So I'm going to want something different. And that's okay. Yes. Uh-huh. Absolutely. This is for you. This is not for anybody else. So our last slide here is my email and the website. LifeCourseTools.com has tons of tools on it. Tons. All kinds of tools you can use. It has the trajectories we looked at. It has the stars we looked at. It has that worksheet that helps you zoom in and think about all the different aspects of your life. It has examples for you. Lots and lots of stuff on LifeCourseTools.com. And I'm going to leave you with one last plug because I know we're out of time. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what you want. Talking to peer mentors, people who've been there and tried stuff and can help you envision something new, and Quillo Connect. Quillo Connect is a tool that can help inspire you based on other people's stories and experiences. What is possible? What support might you be able to use to get there? What have other people used to get there? So peer mentorship and Quillo Connect are additional tools available to you to help figure this out. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me.
Thank you guys for coming to Beth's wonderful session. The author of Virginia would like to present this wonderful gift to Miss Beth Kaiser.
Thank you.
There we go.
And Charlotte, I know you want the slides. I'll make sure you get them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to you.